Last week, I posted a video sharing my top tips for getting started with Amazon KDP. The response to that video has been amazing. I have received so many lovely comments under that video, so many lovely messages, so many DMs, and so many questions. So this week, I thought I would do a little follow-up video directly answering some of the most common questions that I've received about KDP, and there are a lot of them. So let's go ahead and get into it. Firstly, if you didn't see that video, I will put a little link to it here. You can also find it in the description under this video. I also did a live workshop. If you missed that live workshop, I've also posted the replay of the workshop here on my YouTube channel, and you can find the link to that in the description as well. And I will also put a little pop-up to it over here. Now, let's get into your questions about publishing on Amazon KDP, because you guys had a lot of them. I thought we would start off with some kind of basic questions about creating books on Amazon KDP. And first question was actually a question that was asked quite a lot, which was, how do you decide how many pages to include in your low content books? It depends on the type of book that you are creating. With my notebooks and planners, I've had around 120 to 150 pages in them. I also did a page per day undated planner, and that has a really high page count. It has over 365 pages in it because it had a page for planning every single day. But with coloring book, you don't have to do a particularly high page count. If you're unsure of what you should set the page count as, I would do a little bit of market research, either go into a bookshop or a library, or even browse books that are similar to the type of book that you want to publish directly on Amazon and have a look at what the page count for those books are. Do you need an ISBN number for publishing books on Amazon KDP? And the answer actually is no. First of all, if you're publishing a low content book, you don't need an ISBN at all. If you are publishing a regular book on Amazon, like a coloring book, for example, or a recipe book, or maybe you've written a novel and you're publishing that, then you will be able to generate an ISBN as part of the listing creation process directly on KDP. So you don't actually need to go and register and purchase an ISBN number separately outside of Amazon KDP. You can do it directly on KDP while you are creating your book listing. Next question that came up a lot, I was surprised about because I thought I had kind of explained it quite well in last week's video, but apparently I didn't. And that was generally like, how does shipping work? Can you do drop shipping? What if you want to ship the orders yourself? But a lot of questions about shipping. Basically, Amazon KDP is a print on demand service. So you design the book, you upload it to the back end of KDP, and then you publish and it gets posted on Amazon. When someone orders your book, Amazon manages everything: the printing of the book, the creation of the book, the packaging, the shipping, the invoicing. You don't have to handle or manage or do any admin for any of the book orders that get processed. However, some people were asking me if I want to sell my book on my own website, is that a possibility? And the answer is yes. You can bulk order up to 100 copies at a time of your own book at print cost, and you are allowed to resell those copies of your book on your own website if you want to, or physically at a market, for example, in person, you can do that. But if you don't want to do that, Amazon will manage everything. Another question that came up a lot is, can you order sample copies or proof copies of your own book? And again, the answer to that is yes. When you are creating your book listing, before you hit publish on it, you can click a button to order a proof copy of your own book. This is like a preview copy for you as the author to see what your book is going to look like, and also to kind of have a physical copy to proof check. You do have like the virtual book previewer when you are uploading your book to Amazon, and that gives you a virtual preview of what your book is going to look like. You can also order a physical proof copy where you can actually check that the pages are printing okay, that the cover is printing okay, and everything is getting trimmed and laid out in the right place. That book does come with a watermark on the cover and some of the internal pages. It just has like a big watermark over the front of it that says not for resale. Personally, in my experience, I've never ordered proof copies. I've trusted the digital preview and it's always worked for me. I wait until after my book is published and I order author copies, so I have samples of my books that I can physically see and also that I can use to create content for like Reels and TikTok. But a lot of my students who have taken my Amazon KDP course have preferred the route of doing a proof copy where they get that sample copy in to look at before they hit publish. Next, let's move on to some questions about revenue, royalties, and costs and expenses. I was wondering what your budgeting process was like for starting selling on KDP. Was it a high startup cost for publishing your low content books? Also, does it cost extra to publish books on multiple Amazon marketplaces? So if I didn't make this clear enough in my previous video, it is absolutely free to use Amazon KDP. It is free to set up and create your Amazon KDP account. It's also free to create an Amazon author account that creates like a little author profile for your books. And it is free to upload and list a book, whether you list it on one Amazon marketplace or multiple Amazon marketplaces. You do not pay anything as an author to have your books published on Amazon KDP. That is a great segue into my next question, which came up a lot, which is how do royalties work on KDP? And in your experience, is KDP a profitable print-on-demand product offering? So the way that royalties work on KDP is really similar to how like a print-on-demand service works for putting your designs on merch. You create your book, you list it on Amazon, you decide the paper, the cover finish, and all of those lovely details. And as you create your listing, Amazon KDP gives you a print cost for your book. This is how much it costs Amazon to produce each copy of your book. You then decide the listing price for your book, and this is the cost that a customer pays when they buy your book. So if Amazon is telling you that the print cost is $5 for every copy of your book, you could choose to set the listing price of your book or the retail price of your book to $10. That means it costs $5 to create your book, and then that extra $5 is split between you, your royalties, and the cut that KDP takes. In my experience, is KDP a profitable print-on-demand offering to add to your business? I'm gonna bust a myth here about Amazon KDP because I see this a lot, that Amazon KDP is one of those get-rich-quick schemes where you can put in a low effort and create a low content book, or you can use AI to write a novel for you and then you can self-publish it with KDP and just watch the money roll in. Amazon is a highly saturated marketplace. That means there is a lot of products on there. There is a lot of books on there, and there is a lot of people using Amazon KDP to publish books and low content books. So the competition is high. If you want to make Amazon KDP a profitable revenue stream for your creative business, you do have to put some effort into marketing and sharing the books that you post. I teach a little bit about this inside in my Amazon KDP course, Published and Printed. If you want to find out a little bit more about that, I have put the link in the description. I teach you everything you need to know about Amazon, from getting started to creating your first manuscript, creating the cover, getting it listed on Amazon, as well as things like how to market and share your book so that it actually gets seen, SEO for your titles and subtitles so that your books actually rank high in the Amazon search, as well as things like how to use A+ content on Amazon to add extra images and information to your book listings to make them more appealing. So to answer your question, it depends on how much you put in. If you create a book and publish it on Amazon and just assume that it's going to make sales, you're probably going to be really disappointed, because unless what you create is something that's really in demand and you have a really good SEO title and subtitle, people probably won't find that book unless you tell them about it. Let's move on to some questions about formatting and designing of your book files. What is the best tool for creating a book project? Canva, Illustrator, or Photoshop? It depends on your skill set and the type of book that you are creating. So if you are creating a book with a lot of text in it, I would recommend using a text-based editor like even Word doc or Google Doc or Adobe InDesign. If you're doing a low content or a book that has more graphics and visuals in it, you can use something like Canva. A lot of my students inside of my Amazon KDP course have used Canva to help them create their manuscript files. I personally use Adobe InDesign. I know another popular tool with my KDP students is Affinity Designer. Some people have asked me if Procreate is a good tool for designing and creating books on Amazon KDP. And I know a lot of you who watch my videos are like me, illustrators or artists or like creative people who want to add your own little illustrations to your book. But for KDP, it's actually not the best program for creating your manuscript or cover file. So if you do use Procreate, what I always recommend to my students is use Procreate to create your illustrations or your graphics or your headers or whatever little icons, assets, or illustrations you want to add to your book, but then actually format your manuscript in a software that supports better page layouts, specifically a software that allows you to add page margins and a page bleed. Following on from that, someone else asked, what are bleed lines? You mentioned them in your last video. How do we add them to our pages and what do they do? So a bleed line is an extra margin around the edge of your page that goes outside of your trim line. When you are creating something for print, like a book, it's usually printed on like a larger piece of paper, and then when it's all printed, it's stacked together and trimmed down so all the edges of the pages are trimmed and match up to the same point. You use your bleed line to make sure that if you have something that's running to the edge of the page, that it's gonna get trimmed in the right place. For example, a lot of my planners, I have pages that have illustrations, so like full page, full color illustrations, and I don't want there to be a part of that where the illustration isn't running to the page, or like there's a little white line where the page got trimmed but the illustration didn't go the whole way to the edge. So when you're creating your document, you add your bleed so that you can drag all of your designs out to the edge of the bleed line, and when you save the document, your book gets printed and trimmed on your trim line. I'll put in a little diagram here so you can see the difference between where the trim line is and the bleed line is, but basically it's just a safe zone around the edge of your page so that if you have something that you want the color to go the whole way to the edge of the page or the image to go the whole way to the page, you can make sure that it gets trimmed in the right place, but also that you can make sure that you don't have something outside the edge of your page that you don't want to get trimmed. Do we need licenses for things like fonts, images, or graphics included in our books? You need a license for reselling an image, whether you're putting it in a book or you're putting it on a product for your Etsy shop. If you didn't create the image yourself or you didn't create the font yourself, you might not have the license or the right to use that in a product that you are reselling, and it is exactly the same for books on KDP. Another place where people sometimes kind of get caught is with Canva itself. I know a lot of people create low content books using Canva because it is a great tool if you're a beginner, or things like Adobe InDesign or Affinity Designer just feel a little bit out of your skill level right now. However, the elements, the graphics, the illustrations, and the images that are in the stock library on Canva for you when you're creating your projects do not have an open usage license. You don't actually have the right to use those images, elements, or designs in and on projects that you are intending to resell. Long story short, you do need a license to resell any image or fonts or graphics that you are putting in your low content books. If you didn't create them yourself, please make sure you are buying a commercial license or you are requesting a commercial license from the artist or the designer that actually created that graphic or photo or font. Finally, let's finish up with some of your questions about Amazon book listings and how those work. Can you create a book series? If I made a coloring book, for example, and then I made a volume 2 coloring book later, can I add them to the same series so that they are linked on Amazon? Yes, you can. There is like a section in your Amazon book listing when you are setting it up on KDP to mark if a book is a part of a series. Can you edit a book after you have published it? You can make edits to your manuscript and cover. If there are any minor errors inside in your manuscript or on your cover, you can make changes to them after and then resubmit those changes for review through the review phase on KDP. If you are making changes to your manuscript or your cover though, you have to make sure that they're not such significant changes that the book is like a completely different book, because then Amazon KDP will not actually approve those changes. They can only be minor changes where maybe a typo has occurred or there's like an error in the manuscript. Can you pause or stop selling a book on KDP at any point? Yes, you can. In your bookshelf, you have full control over the status of any of your books. At any point, you can unpublish a book so that it's no longer available out on Amazon, but it's still available for you in your KDP bookshelf should you wish to republish it at a later date. You can also delete a book book completely so that it's not available on Amazon and it's also no longer on your KDP bookshelf. It's not a permanent thing once you publish a book. If you do want to remove it from Amazon at any point, you can do that. Can you create and publish a book on Amazon KDP but not have it publicly available on Amazon? The answer to that is no. KDP is a service for publishing your books. If you want your book to be published, then it has to be publicly available on at least one Amazon marketplace. I know some people have asked me about this in the past because they wanted to create a book or workbook, for example, for a membership or a course that they ran, and so they didn't want it to be publicly available on Amazon. And in this case, KDP is not actually the right route for you and the book that you're creating. If you're creating a book that you only want to sell privately, you don't want it to be available to public Amazon marketplaces, then I would recommend going through like a print house and getting your book produced in small numbers based on what you need it for. Do self-published books get seen by potential publishers to pick them up sometime in the future? It really depends. I have heard of people who started publishing books on Amazon KDP, and because those books got so much attention, they then later got approached by publishing houses for future publishing deals. The potential is there that if your books were successful, that you could potentially get approached by a publishing house to either do another book or to like republish a book that you've already done. The other side to that is that it's going to give you experience with formatting and creating books. When I published my first book, The Magic of You, which is up here on my bookshelf behind me, I actually did that with a traditional publishing deal. So my publishers actually approached me and pitched the idea to me, and I created the book with them. That was the first book that I'd ever done, and I had zero book editing, publishing, or design experience like formatting a book. I would have loved to have had some more experience before I done that book, because I think I would have done some things differently if I was more experienced with formatting books at that point. So the other benefit to self-publishing first is you get experience with designing book layouts and covers. And so even if a publisher doesn't approach you, you could pitch yourself to publishers for future book ideas that you had that maybe you would like to have a book deal for. It also is a great project to add to your portfolio. I always say this to all of my students inside in my KDP course: add your self-published book projects to your portfolio on your website, because a publisher might look at them, whether that is to approach you for a book deal or to approach you for a designer or illustrator for someone else's book. So you might get hired to design a cover for someone, or you might get hired to do illustrations for a children's book. If you have any other questions about self-publishing on Amazon KDP, be sure to jump down to the comments and ask me down there. I would love to chat with you guys more. We've already been chatting a ton on the other videos that I've posted about KDP in recent weeks. But if there's a question that you have and I haven't answered it, reach out in the comments and share it with me. If you liked this video and found it helpful, be sure to click that like button. And if this is the first video that you are seeing and you are new to me and the world of my work, but you want to see more from me, be sure to click that subscribe button to join the growing creative community here on my cozy corner of YouTube. If you are interested in finding out more about self-publishing with KDP and you're looking for a little bit more support with it, again, I have put all of the information about my Amazon KDP course published and printed in the description under this video. We do like live lessons, but it also combines a little bit of coaching where you work on a book project as we go through the course, and I support you with that every step of the way, giving you feedback, helping you format your book if you're having issues with it. So if you are a first-time self-publisher and you are really eager to publish on KDP, but you would love a little bit more help, then be sure to check out the link in the description under this video. I hope that you found this video useful. I hope it has inspired you to go and explore Amazon KDP a little bit more. I look forward to chatting with you guys in the comments, and I will see you in the next video.